So, Nicole, I heard today was a special day.
It is. It's my birthday. Just kidding. No, it's not. It is Giving Tuesday today. So if you're unfamiliar with what Giving Tuesday is, so we just had Cyber Monday, we had Black Friday. You spent all this money on people you love, people you like, and people you felt you had to. So Giving Tuesday is about donating to nonprofits. So that's kind of the original place. So my challenge is there's other things to donate. You've got time, talent, and money. So if you're kind of out of money, use Altruize, and now you can start donating your time and talent. And honestly, that's one of the most important things you can do. You'll notice on the app that the volunteer hour is worth right around $31 and some change. So that's how much value you bring to a nonprofit with your volunteering. So I encourage everybody to go do something for Giving Tuesday and make it your time and talent.
I love it. Everyone, donate for Giving Tuesday, whether it's your time, your energy, your talents, your money, whatever you can give. Let's make it happen.
Yep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Founders Ascent. We are very excited to have our guest, Nicole Sdao, CEO and founder of Altruize, here with us. Altruize is a company in Wisconsin helping volunteers manage their data and make it more transparent and accessible, and just overall improving their paperwork. And I'm really excited because, as I'm sure a lot of you know by now, data science is one of my favorite things to talk about. And Nicole, something super interesting about her is she was a chiropractor for about 15 years before starting Altruize and sort of making a pretty sudden change. And I'm really curious, Nicole, about how you got started and where did Altruize come from?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. So I'll just start it off by saying I am a faith-driven entrepreneur. So even on my LinkedIn page, I say God doesn't read resumes because he writes them, and that's come to an interesting process for me, and I feel like my journey is a perfect example of that. So I actually graduated my degree from UW-Madison in bacteriology and love the sciences, but the rats weren't keeping up their end of the conversation, so I decided to find something that I could actually make a career out of, and that was chiropractic for me. Met my now husband there, and then we started our own chiropractic office. And we moved to a city that we didn't know anybody. So volunteering became really big because how better to get to meet and know your community members than volunteering. Then when we started having kids, got even more involved in volunteering for other things and started to see this disconnect between volunteering and the nonprofits and kind of that data piece. And then like the college admissions scandal happened where you realize that about 80% or more of the college admissions process relies on that volunteer data piece, and yet it's not verified or standardized. And then all of a sudden employers are, having this part of their company culture and using it as a way to get customers, and yet they can't prove that it actually happened. It's still just subjective data right now. So I stepped away and said, all right, let's see if we can't fix it.
Okay. So you became, or I guess you opened your own practice for chiropractor. But I guess you didn't really besides that, you didn't validate a brand new idea until much later in life, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So what got you to get up and start something, being somebody that had never, I guess, done that before?
A lot of it is the faith of stepping out, right? Yeah. You have to just be confident, you're being called to do something greater that you want to actually tackle and see it through. So if you don't have that much passion over it, then I don't see the point. That's part of the reason for me, having classes, I know it's just kind of a fancier way to say business, but having classes that say that you're going to get your degree in entrepreneurship, I think is misleading, because you really can't be a true entrepreneur unless you've got a passion for something that justifies why in the world would you be willing to live in your car. to make this dream come true, right? So I think there needs to be a balance in the educational space with that piece, because yes, you need the business acumen, you need all that stuff, which is really what the entrepreneurship classes are teaching. But to just feel like you've got a degree in entrepreneurship and that makes you ready to be an entrepreneur, that's scary.
100% with you. I've often thought that a lot of entrepreneurship degrees and business degrees in general, unless you're actually practicing it and living in it and making stuff happen, I'm not sure what they're teaching besides terminology and stuff like that. But with Altruize, it looks to me like it's largely a piece of software, but it doesn't seem like you have much of a technology or programming background, right? So how did you make that into reality? What was sort of the steps to get from like just this idea to something people could actually use?
So I had two previous startups that failed forward into Altruize. That was where I was getting my degree on entrepreneurship for startups, right? So I took it baby steps, like find a developer. Definitely got screwed a couple times on that whole process because they could take advantage of me. One of the developers developed my first thing in Cold Fusion, which I didn't realize was like a 30-year-old code, and I found like the one person in the Midwest that still knew how to do it, apparently. So there's definitely some things to watch out for. With that being said, yes, I'm a non-dev founder. The normal term out there is non-tech founder. I don't like that term because it makes it sound like I don't know how to run a Google Doc. I'm a non-dev founder. I just don't know how to do the development, right? But I think for something like Altruize to exist, I think it really did need to come from, and again, this is where the writing the resume, not reading them comes from, really did need to come from somebody non-technical and somebody that has experienced the trials and tribulations of that volunteer world, I guess, and the missing gaps. So it's been interesting. I was scheduled to launch Altruize March 22nd of what year, guys? Come on, what year do you think it was?
2016?
2020.
Oh.
So I had two previous startups, so you're probably thinking of the other startups that I had prior.
Yeah.
But yeah, Altruize itself was scheduled to launch March of 2020. An app to tell everybody to go in their communities and go volunteer.
Nice.
And the world shut.
Yeah.
And so what is it that Altruize does? I haven't had the opportunity to play around with it, but what's like the main core feature? If I was to open it right now, what should I be doing?
Yep. And I encourage everyone listening, you guys go ahead, download it. It's free. Our goal is to help you volunteer for a lifetime. We like to think of ourselves as kind of the Fitbit for altruism. So Altruize is a platform where we are a volunteer data management platform. There's plenty of volunteer management platforms out there, but none of them focus any of their time and energy on the actual volunteer creating the data. So we're the first where we are with you for a lifetime, whether you needed to track hours to graduate from high school, apply for college, apply for a job, use it to get out a few parking tickets with court-ordered community service, just saying. Anything like that, we're your tool. So that's kind of the data hard part of it. The bigger part that we really want to get people to, though, is that you're doing it because you want to better yourself.
Gotcha. In the beginning, though, how did you validate your idea? Were you just going out to a bunch of family members, friends? What was the case there in the beginning?
Yeah, so that really had to do with the two previous startups, right? And that's why I say it failed forward, because that was me validating ideas. I just wasn't appreciating the number 0 like I should have. So one of the first ideas I had was more of a buying and selling fundraising ideas. Took that, I thought I was selling that. I wasn't. I was doing, research on whether or not it was actually going to be a viable company. In that process, realized, boy, there's this disconnect between the data and finding volunteer opportunities. So the next one was called Nonprofit Thrive, and then it changed its name to Let's Thrive 360, to have nonprofits post opportunities. And that was going to be for free. And they weren't doing that. And I said, well, why aren't you guys doing this? And they're, oh, one more thing to do. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So what makes us different? Well, we're the company that proves that it happened after the fact. There's plenty of companies out there that already sign people up for opportunities and ways to do that. We're the company that actually shows and proves that BJ showed up for the event he signed up for, because it can be verified through our application that he was there. And then that data is free for BJ to use because you created it, so you get a free report. It's free for the nonprofit that verified his information. So the two that are creating the information, it's free to have reports. Our revenue model is based on those organizations that are requiring BJ to go volunteer. So if it was his company that wants to see him volunteer 30 hours every quarter, they would pay to be able to link to BJ's account and see that and get rid of the paperwork and cumbersomeness of that process.
And so who are like your largest customers? Is it largely schools and education institutions that are the biggest segments?
Yeah, so so one of the big things that I did, I'm going to segue a little bit from that. So we just relaunched really, our Altruize 2.0. So prior to this, our MVP was only a mobile app. So it was really restrictive because you couldn't get it on a desktop and it was kind of difficult for organizations. I had gotten friends and family funding in 2020 in order to get things launched and going. Well, obviously with a year and a half of not being able to do anything with it, it got really tough. And as a non-dev founder, I still needed that piece. So I'm assuming you guys are familiar with Y Combinator. They actually have a thing on there called Co-Founder Match. And so I was able, a little dating service, right? I mean, not really a dating service, but it was pretty awesome. So the first two people that I connected with, it didn't really work out. The third one, though, he is now my co-founder. Yeah. It's been amazing, and he's put in the sweat equity, so now I don't have to pay for that piece. But so yes, our major customers would be those private high schools, generally speaking, but more and more public high schools are having that requirement too. And then any businesses as well.
Okay, and I feel like, especially at like the university level, getting like them to sign on would be very difficult. Because I know at our university, all the business students, they have to have 100 hours of community service in order to graduate, and so I could see that being very applicable there. So what is the process like getting even like a smaller private high school to trust your service? What is that like?
Right now, we're really in the early stages of getting those customers. So it is all about that personal relationship. So like the ones that we work with right now, we're looking for legacy partners. So we're looking for those first 10, max 20 schools or businesses that want to help us learn from them and be a part of that process. And then for that, we will lock in forever rate that will never go up. And it's going to, and yeah, it's very reasonable. So with that, the legacy partners, we have 2 already, and we have monthly meetings with them, making sure, and of course our door is always open to them because we want that feedback. We need to know how our product's doing so we can correct it. And that's been a really amazing piece of having a CTO, co-founder, that can make those fixes instantly. When before, when it was just a dev shop, they really don't care. You're just another project. So it'd be weeks before something would get fixed. So, yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge with Altruize thus far?
Minus my needing the co-founder and lack of the actual development skills, which again makes for an interesting challenge, but I'm ready for it because I believe in the product and I believe in the mission.
Yeah.
Probably would be getting the players in the space to understand we are not a volunteer management platform. We are the data management, and that we are not here to replace a volunteer management platform. We're not even here to replace anything in, like, for businesses in their HR or school student management platforms. We're here to augment the experience and be able to make it more impactful for everybody involved.
You're essentially replacing like dozens of letters that are signed from organizers. Exactly. Right. I remember collecting those and always being a challenge to get all those. So this makes a whole ton of sense to me, how just useful it would be to have all that data together. How do you think Altruize will like expand and grow? Is it largely just about growing the network and having more schools connected through this, or is there additional features and services you might consider providing?
One of the areas we do want to expand into would be the judicial system for court-ordered community service. Right now, that's seen as a punishment. It's just a horrible, hot mess of pieces of paper right now. So we really think we could reframe that whole piece of the judicial system and make it something worthwhile and something actually that the individual could actually benefit from, instead of right now just giving that data to the court and not having it for themselves.
How do you stop someone? How do you verify that someone signing off on the service hours is legitimate? What's to stop like Gavin from creating an organization and then me to sign up for the events and him to sign off on them and just sort of do that?
First of all, if you guys are willing to do that, that's a lot of extra work. Secondly, if Gavin, so for Gavin to sign up for an organization as an organization, we give the opportunity that you have either EIN number or you are just a charitable organization, because there's plenty of like PTOs out there and all that are clearly volunteer, but they don't have the formal thing. You have to have either a website and or a Facebook page, and that's stuff that we monitor. So if there's nothing happening there, if you've got 2 followers on your Facebook page, if there's, we've got the right to suspend accounts, and if we see, boy, the only place that BJ is getting his 1,000 hours from is from Gavin's foundation, we've got things built in our system to watch for patterns like that and call them out.
Gotcha. So we won't do that, BJ. The plan's not going to work. I want to talk to you more about marketing though, because I'm interested to hear how you guys are expanding. How much time would you say is spent on marketing, and what is the marketing plan looking like for you?
So right now we do not have a budget for marketing. So it is as guerrilla as it can be. I'm the one that has to put out all the social media posts. I'm the one that does that piece. I just put out a post yesterday, actually. So please go check it out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And then we do, email blasts. We've scraped to get different emails for the different private schools, just to try to connect that way.
I imagine also word of mouth is pretty effective for you guys, because someone volunteers for one and they use Altruize and they find it so easy, and then another one does signed off pieces of paper and they just say it naturally. It would be so much easier if you use Altruize. And
exactly.
You turn everyone. What was that?
Yeah, I was going to say we haven't reached that critical mass yet but yes, right. that to us would be the pinnacle of, okay, we've made it. The word of mouth now has gotten to the point where it's taken over.
And are you largely focused in your local area, or are you already like spread out across random places?
Yeah, we're already spread out because honestly, that was the good part of COVID. Because
Right.
now I had to do all this stuff online and, Zoom. So actually, the one school that we have is in Pittsburgh, is in Pennsylvania, smaller town. Another one is in Georgia. We've got partnerships with different organizations from Virginia to California. I mean, yeah, we're all over from that standpoint.
Yeah, so probably, I guess what will happen is you're eventually going to get to that point where there is a tipping point, and then that you really won't have to spend much time on it, and that it is spreading rapidly. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called Tipping Point, and it kind of reminds me of that.
Tipping Point,
but,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Great book, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, actually, when you guys were talking earlier, one of the books that popped into my mind is The Mom Test.
What is that about?
Have you read that one?
I haven't read it, but I've studied it, I guess.
Because you guys we were talking offline before it was getting recorded about your guys's, you're thinking of your ideas and stuff. It's basically how to ask the questions, do that customer discovery.
Okay.
Where even your mom can't lie to you.
Okay,
so
I'll look into it.
As to whether or not it would be a good idea and be useful, right? Very good book. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so with that sort of validation and making that happen, when you were first getting this together, did you jump directly into the software development portion, or was there a brief moment where like there was a prototype that exists in like Google Docs and Google Forms that you sort of rigged together?
I didn't know any better, which is good and bad. So when you guys asked like what made you go from chiropractor to now this startup tech founder, it seems so difficult, it seems so dumb. I remember seeing an interview way back in my day about this 77-year-old who graduated from a 4-year college, and the interviewer finally asked her the question, what in the world made you go back to school and get a 4-year degree at your age, kind of thing? And she was like, well, I plan on being 4 years older. Why not have the degree at the end? And then the very next interview after that was this woman who had started a orphanage in Russia. And they were like, oh my gosh, you started in Russia at the height of the Cold War. Like, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? She's like, I didn't know it wasn't possible. So there's some strength into, there's a lot to be scared of, but you're better off just going with it and trying it, right? So I knew the only way that I was going to actually have an impact on all nonprofits, because that was and still is, because there's a lot that the nonprofits get out of Altruize for free to help with grant writing and everything else, their data process. But I wanted to see nonprofits thrive. And I knew the only way to help as many nonprofits as possible was to do something online, which meant it had to be a tech solution. So I did start like on paper in a notebook for my first idea, trying to get my ideas out. But at the end of the day, I needed them out of my head so I could correct them. It's kind of like, that's what I like about ChatGTP, to be honest with you. I would never just take whatever ChatGTP typed out for me as is.
Yeah.
But it really helps for writer's block. Like, here, this is what I need I need this said. And then it spits something out and I'm like, okay, I don't like that. I don't like that. That's fine. Okay, I'm going to add that, So that's kind of where it started. So yeah, I mean, I pretty quickly jumped into a software solution and just stayed in that realm.
That was something I wanted to ask about, is your use of AI, because I see AI as sort of empowering like solopreneurs, because ChatGPT can do a lot of functions that you might hire assistants to do. And there are other stuff that's coming out where you draw the layout of the app and it writes the code for it. And so I'm
Don't tell me that. That's just gonna make me mad. I'm gonna be like
you draw it and it makes it.
Freaking 15 years from now swearing. Back in my day, I had to go hire somebody.
I honestly think it, like, I think it's better that way because there's more of a barrier to entry, and so because of that, you're probably at the end of the day going to have less competitors. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it, at least.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would agree. I mean, there's supposed to be barriers in the way, you know, you're going to hear it time and time again, and yet we always say it because we always have to hear it, apparently. But the reason people don't start stuff is because they're too scared, and the reason that they aren't successful is usually because they quit too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's supposed to be barriers in the way to fortify you, to get you to that next level.
Yeah, like I do think it is interesting though that you and a guest we were talking to this morning, both of you became entrepreneurs like later in life, and I forgot what book this was in. I guess it was in Originals, and the author was talking about how generally, if you never start your own company before you turn 30, like odds are you start something after that are like slim to none, essentially. Like if you round it, it's like essentially zero. And so I do think it is really cool that you and the other guy we were talking to started something later in life. And I think the reason behind it is because you're genuinely passionate about it, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that you might, so I've always been an entrepreneur. We own our own chiropractic office. I grew up with my parents being realtors, right? So that's one thing that I think there is a disconnect with tech founders on your brick and mortar entrepreneurs. Now, with that being said, I've come to appreciate that being a startup founder, like being a startup entrepreneur, is way different. Like there is a difference, right? Yeah. When we bought our chiropractic, so we bought the chiropractic business from somebody else. We could go to the bank. There are already a gazillion other chiropractors. We could show the numbers. We could show and justify why we should get this loan and how we can make that return. I can't do that right now because what I'm creating doesn't exist, right? So it is a very different. And I was talking to another startup entrepreneur about that and just kind of spewing what I just did to you guys. And he goes, that's because we're the Navy SEALs of entrepreneurship. I'm like, we are. Like I know. I go, oh my gosh, I wish somebody would have told me I had to hold my breath this long. That is so perfect.
That's a t-shirt. I want that on a t-shirt. I want that on a mug. I want that on a hat. I want that everywhere.
Well, if you guys get one, you better send me one. I gave you the.
Absolutely.
Will do. We will.
So yeah, it's. So I'm curious if the person that you talked to this morning, if that person's background or at least family environment didn't have that piece to it.
Yeah. He was in business for a long time, and it was interesting because he started big business in the middle of his career, moved to like a medium size, and then like just now, like as of like 7 months ago, startup. And it's cool because the concept behind his business is pretty similar to yours. It seems like his idea was to take medical history and put it in one area where it's accessible. So it's kind of similar in a way. And
no,
I thought
is.
it was interesting.
That's exactly what we're doing with volunteer data. The reason it's the way it is right now is because it's not in a central location. We centralize it.
Yeah.
And now it can be accessed. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I really think that's cool. Because it can be applied to other concepts like the medical industry. Is that something that you've thought of, like expanding outside of that? I guess, I mean, you're obviously in the beginning stages right now, but is it something you have thought about, like cross your mind for a second? Like you could expand into other industries in that regard?
No, just because there's quite a bit of expanding that I already have envisioned for Altruize. I'm good in this piece. If God wants to take me a different direction, he will, but right now it's down here.
And what is the expansion process looking like? Because we've talked to founders in the past that say scaling is pretty difficult. And so what is that looking like for you? Do you plan on hiring a bunch of people, just keeping it small? because some people like to keep it small on purpose, so they don't have to manage people because managing people can get kind of icky. But what's your plan for that?
Well, I like to say that Altruize is definitely like one of my kids. I'm the right person to nurture, bring it up, give it its, morals and values. But it needs to get out of my house at some point.
Okay, gotcha.
To spread its wings and to actually be the great thing that I've envisioned it to be. So I think, I see a community coming out of this. I see us doing volunteer rewards. I see us making this very much its own social networking type platform eventually, for people who have the same passions that they're willing to do for free. That really connects and binds people really well. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways we envision Altruize can go, and because of that, could easily be acquired by who knows whom.
I think we're on the same wavelength because as you were talking, one of the things that popped in my head was having like pages for different social media, like for like the different service events, basically, where people can like all upload those photos and like tag it to the same event and like tag people and have that sort of networking. So I think starting with the data and then also sort of integrating a social network aspect.
Absolutely.
I like where Altruize is headed based off that.
Well, and you guys use LinkedIn, and so on your LinkedIn page you can put in volunteering.
Yeah.
So what if you could get badges provided by Altruize to show that you got these verified third party, or not just blowing smoke up everybody's asses, sorry, that you legitimately did this stuff. And so that's another level we can take it to as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm loving all of this. It seems like you
I see Gavin like working. His mind is working over there. It's like, how would that look like?
It seems like you've kind of always had an entrepreneur network around you. Where did you have to also find like a startup network? And if so, kind of where do you find those people that help you?
Oh yeah, because I'm in the middle of nowhere. I mean, seriously. So I'm in the middle of the country. The best way it was described to me was the coasts have angel investors. The Midwest has rich people. Because they're just not around enough startups to know, and vice versa, right? So I did not know this world existed as a startup. I got a call from somebody that ran the G Beta program, which is part of Generator, which is one of the top 10 accelerators in the country now, but they're the ones pretty much in the Midwest, for one of my other companies. And they're like, yeah, we do this free course. It's 7 weeks. We don't take equity. We don't ask for you to pay, but we get you kind of ready with your pitch decks. And I'm like, my what? And so, yeah, like that totally crashed open this door of VC, like that whole world. And so I kept saying, I'm like, wow, this whole time I'm watching Shark Tank thinking I'm getting information and realizing that's like watching Sesame Street, just learning your ABCs. Like you haven't even opened a book yet. So no, totally different world.
Have you like gotten capital from them? These VC
No,
firms?
so it's just been friends and family.
Okay.
Just been friends and family. And right now we're not actively seeking for capital because we just want to focus on getting the sales. I mean, because we're not going to get capital unless we get the sales anyway. So just want to actively get those users and make sure our product's the best it can be.
I'm a big believer in sales over capital. Just get the money one way or another, but if you can prove there's an audience and get the money, I'm all for that. And so when you were, you largely interacted with people through this accelerator, the generator program, right?
Yep.
And that was your sort of primary way that you networked with all these other founders and entrepreneurs that are making things happen. That's really cool. I haven't messed around with accelerators too much. Like I know they exist. I know Techstars. I know Y Combinator, and I'll see like Reddit posts.
There's a million yet.
Yep. But what if you could sort of talk about your experience with the accelerators a bit more in detail, and like what exactly is it that they makes them different from like I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. But what was it like interacting with them? Who would be a good person to interact with a accelerator, and who do you think probably wouldn't get the same benefit that you've gotten?
Yeah. So like even with you guys, you're trying to find an idea that would stick. Like a G Beta would be great for you because it's 7 weeks. They help you vet your idea. There's no equity. You're not paying any money, and they're not giving any money either. Like it's just really a good opportunity that way. So anybody who's really early, getting in one of those lower tiered accelerator programs that's connected to a bigger one is, I think, a great idea. I would say the only drawback is one of their metrics that they tout is how much VC money and investment has come into their companies they've worked with, right? So there seems to be a pressure for us to always be actively seeking VC money when, to your point, like we really shouldn't have. And I was in a sticky spot because until I found my co-founder, every other, if it was a dev shop, they wanted to be paid, right? They got to keep their lights on. Well, that meant I needed to find money to pay them. So I was in a tough spot that way. Like now that I've got a co-founder who is the dev co-founder, like we're hitting it running now. Like now it's a totally different ballgame.
Gotcha. So. And with your co-founder, how do you guys work together? Like, how do you split up your responsibilities? What is that looking like? What are you spending most of your time on? What is he spending most of his time on day to day? What is that looking like?
Yeah. So we have 2 meetings a week that we plan, like there are check-in meetings, but then of course we will, meet if we need to in between that. Honestly, it's mostly if it has to do with the technical dev stuff, that's all on him. Mm-hmm. If it's, coming up with the social media posts, doing this type of stuff, coming up with who do I talk to next, of getting the sales, like I'm in charge of, any demos that come through, demo requests, all that stuff, like that's me. So, and then I get feedback from the customer, he and I go through it together, like, okay, should we change this? Should we not change this? And then we kind of go from there. He'll also, he's great for looking at different technologies that might help us, right? Different email scraping tools or whatever, like all that stuff too. So he'll help out the marketing side if there's a tech component that I need to integrate. But I'll write the email. I'll do that part of it.
And so he obviously built most of the product, but is there anything that he sort of like added a new feature or inspired you to reach out to a new audience that maybe something you didn't even consider was possible, but he injected his own creativity?
So early on, we had talked about that aspect of finding the opportunities. And I told him, I'd already done that with a previous startup. The nonprofits don't post opportunities. It truly is just one more thing for them to do, and it's just they're not going to do it. So when you brought up how do you use AI, mm-hmm. So he, in the course of, again, it's been a mobile app. So he at least had an idea, so it made it easier for him to do it. But he's like, oh, I did something in the profile. So when you guys set up your free accounts, because I'm assuming you will do that, if you go into your profile, you'll see a section that says put in your interests and click to look for volunteer opportunities. So we use ChatGTP to take your city and state based on your interests that you'd put in and scrape to find organizations that you might match with.
Whoa.
That is extremely cool. That
I like
is
that. Wait, yeah.
Well, here's what I like about it. It's more meaningful than finding a one-off opportunity. We're connecting the person with the organization itself, not just with an opportunity where they could just pop in, pop out, right? And it allows the nonprofit, it takes the pressure off of them to have to post something all the time for opportunities. This way, Gavin, you just call the Humane Society and you're like, hey, Altruize said we might be a good fit. What do you got for me? And they're like, oh my gosh, can you come at 2 today? Because we've got 50 dogs coming. And you're like, yes. So it's more meaningful. So, and you can change the city state. Like if you ended up going someplace for a few weeks and you wanted to do some volunteering while you were there, you just change the city state, rerun the search, and find out where you should connect.
Okay, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah. What people can be doing to help Altruize succeed? Because you've sold me on this. I'm like, okay, now what is it? Because you mentioned you were just looking for like 10, 20 sort of people to be your legacy group.
Yeah.
How is it just like signing up for the site and doing service? Is it telling organizations you work with, hey, this exists, you should use it? And just
kind of all of that. So the 10 to 20 legacy partners are truly the paying customers. So if there's anybody listening that like their school had requirements for volunteering and it was a pain in your ass to turn in that piece of paper all the time, like, hey, that'd be awesome if you got a contact for us. Same with the business, right? If there's something that we can do there. Otherwise, as you guys probably know, like a lot of it's just users. Like we just want a lot of users so we can show that this is really going to do what we said it will do, which is for the individual to be able to track and use and move forward. So whatever we can do to blast and get as many users on board, and that would be amazing. So following our social media stuff, because of course we don't have near enough followers to make it mean anything yet on algorithms, so that would be cool. But yeah, I would appreciate any feedback. Like we would love to hear your feedback too.
Awesome. Yeah, we will certainly link to everything you're doing in the description so people know exactly where to find you, and
thank you.
So they can get the app. I think I'm ready for rapid fire. I think I'm extremely excited with this. Unless Gavin, you have another question in mind.
Yeah, I guess last one before we get to rapid fire, and you maybe already touched upon this a little bit, but like, what do you see yourself doing in 5 to 10 years? Like, still doing this? If so, what is it looking like? What's the plan?
Yeah, I envision still being with Altruize in some form. Mm-hmm. Again, I appreciate the fact that it will need to leave my nest in order to really fly, because I do not have that acumen to, you got to be realistic too. I think it was, it absolutely had to be somebody with boots on the ground in volunteering that needed to start this. For it to keep going and have its major impact, it'll have to go into somebody else's hands. So, okay. I envision being on a beach somewhere. I don't know. That seems like a good.
Sounds good.
Those Wisconsin beaches.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we got some. Milwaukee's got some. Like Michigan.
I love it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Rapid fire time.
Yeah. So 6 questions. Generally, we say keep it less than 30 seconds, but just a guideline. Okay. First question. How much sleep do you get?
How much sleep? I get 6 to 8 hours.
Awesome.
I'm too old to screw around that way. Like, it's not worth not thinking correctly the next day. So 6 to 8 hours.
What's your favorite book and why?
Talking to Strangers, because I think it's
by Gladwell.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's like my favorite author. So
Yeah, absolutely. But that one is the top because it's a relationship
Hmm.
building book, and it's not just how to, sell to somebody. It's how do you understand in certain circumstances, and it's the empathy we all need in order to de-escalate 99.9% of situations. If you could just for a hot second think of why somebody is reacting the way they're reacting, oh my goodness.
Yeah, because we overestimate how good we are at actually understanding other people, I think. So,
Oh, totally.
Awesome. Sounds like I need to read Gladwell.
dude, he's an amazing author. Do it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you haven't read anything by him yet?
Yeah, dude, come on.
I've heard a lot of stuff. Like I hear Outliers and all that, but I haven't
Blink is good.
Blink. Yes, I just haven't picked one up yet.
Yeah, you need to.
But third question is, if you had to start your career over again tomorrow with nothing, what's the first thing you would do?
With nothing? Oh my gosh. I don't even. I'd probably waitress. That's what I did to begin with. Start making connections, start networking, like truly nothing. Like I don't have a phone, I don't have anything. I'd probably just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think those waitressing skills are still kind of useful? That
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
What's most important to you in life?
Family. Kind of the basic F's, faith, family. So,
If you could change anything about the world, what would it be and why?
no, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I mean, I have Altruize for a reason. It's truly empathy piece of it. I think, you can talk about world peace, but how do you get there? Like, it's empathy. If just people could have empathy for one another.
Okay. Last one. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as somebody that lived their life as, I don't want to say to the fullest because that's the wrong one. There's a quote that I live by, and I'm going to butcher the quote now. Because I'm being put on the spot. It's basically when I die and I'm standing before God, I hope that I can say I used everything you gave me and I have not a bit left.
Mm.
So I've been able to be a mom. I've been able to get a degree in bacteriology. I was actually a championship bodybuilder. Throw that one in there.
Wow.
I've started something that's a passion of mine that I believe in. I've taken the chances, I've taken the risks, but still done it in a calculated way. Like my family's not going to be homeless from this. That would be dumb.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I love it. I think that's a fantastic place to leave off with just your whole story from changing from chiropractic to now doing Altruize and finding a way to connect all the volunteering data and service and charity that's happening and just help all the world become more empathetic. I think that is a fantastic way to sum up what you're doing. And I'm so very happy we got to talk with you. This was very enjoyable for me, and I'm so excited to see what Altruize and what you do.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome.
Of course.
And to everyone still watching, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to check out everything Nicole's doing and sign up for Altruize. And be sure to join us next week, Tuesday at noon. Don't be late. We will see you there.